If you'd told me a week ago my marriage would shatter over the morning paper, I might have laughed in your face. But life has a way of blindsiding you when you least expect it. Monday morning. I can still smell the coffee, see the sunlight pouring over our kitchen table, and hear the soft rustle of Kathy's slippers on the tiles. I was deep into the sports section, savouring the last moments of my breakfast peace, when my world shifted on its axis. "Devin, can you put the newspaper down? I need to talk to you," Kathy said, her voice trembling ever so slightly. I set the paper aside, glancing at her. That's when she dropped the bomb. "I'm leaving you, Devin. I want a divorce." There was a strange calmness in my voice as I replied, "Is that all?" I picked the paper back up, flipping the page, refusing to give her the drama she was aching for. "I'm serious, Devin," she snapped, her voice rising. I kept reading. Her anger grew hotter than my coffee. "Damn it, Devin, put down that newspaper and talk to me about this," I shrugged, setting the paper aside. "I have nothing to say to you except goodbye. It's not much of a loss anyway. You haven't been worth much as a wife for over a year, so just go." I got up, left the room, and went straight to the Home Office. My hands shook a little as I grabbed a notebook, a pen, and an envelope from my desk. As I sat back at the table, I wrote at the top of the page, "Marcus, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank God she's leaving." I was folding the note, on the edge of sealing it, when an idea flashed across my mind. I pulled out one of the lottery tickets I'd bought the night before and tucked it into the envelope, along with the note. My message continued. Maybe if you get lucky and win, it'll be enough to keep the cheaters satisfied, so she won't cheat again. Good luck, kid. You'll need it. Sincerely, a very grateful Devin. I sealed the envelope, addressed it, and handed it to Kathy. "When you see him, give him this." She stared at me, completely thrown off balance. "You know, just because you think I'm clueless doesn't mean I actually am," I said, reclaiming the envelope before she could say another word. "Maybe I should just mail it myself. I don't trust you not to open it, read it, and throw it away. Now, why don't you go pack your things and get out of my life? And since you're so eager to leave, you'd better get out as soon as possible." She lifted her chin stubbornly. "I'm not going anywhere, Devin. I'm not moving out just so you can bring your little friend in." I didn't say another word. I poured the rest of my coffee into a travel mug and headed out, the door swinging shut behind me. Driving to work, my stomach churned, with a nervous energy I hadn't felt in years. My first stop was the bank, where I closed every account we shared, cleared out our safe deposit box, and quietly started fresh at another branch under only my name. Joint credit cards, cancelled, new ones on the way, all under just me. By noon, I fully belonged to myself again for the first time in a decade. That night, after a long day burying myself in work, I met up for dinner and drinks with my executive assistant, Lauren. During cocktails, I let it slip that I was back on the market, and to my surprise, she laughed and told me, "Forget my sister, Devin. I want to be first in line." For a minute, my mind spun back through years of memories. Lauren had started as my secretary 10 years ago, fought her way up to become my assistant, and eventually my right hand at work. Once, she'd brought her sister to a backyard barbecue, and Lauren had later joked about her sister crushing on me. At the time, I shrugged it off, warning her not to mention it to Kathy. My wife was jealous enough as it was. Now, sitting across from Lauren, the idea that she was really interested in me hit me in a way I hadn't expected. "All right," I joked. "Then Lauren's in first place, her sister second." She grinned. "I'm serious, boss. I want a chance." I glanced down at my drink, weighing everything I'd just lost, and maybe what I could gain. "You might change your mind when you hear what I've been dealing with." But Lauren leaned in even closer. I realised, for the first time in a year and a half, I was the one being wanted, not the one being left behind. And though I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, a strange hope flickered inside me, one I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Lauren's eyes narrowed, sharp with curiosity and just the hint of daring. She rested her chin on her hand and asked, "So, Devin, What's the real story? You just let her dump you out of the blue. I sighed, swirling the ice in my glass. She thinks it's her idea to leave, but honestly, it should have happened a long time ago. A year and a half ago, Kathy started seeing someone else. I knew the moment it happened, maybe even before she did. Lauren sat forward, eyebrows raised in shock. Wait, you let her walk around with another guy for that long? That must have eaten you alive. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You'd be surprised how fast love turns into hate, and then hate just fades into nothing but indifference. When I first found out, I'll admit I wanted to explode, shout at her, slam doors, turn the house upside down. But where would that get me? In this state, divorces are no fault. Everything gets cut straight down the middle. If I had flipped out, I'd have lost my house, my garage, even my woodworking shop. Instead, I let her clean, cook, do my laundry, and keep up the appearance of a marriage. As long as she kept that up, I pretended not to see what was right in front of me. Lauren's voice dropped. How did you know she was cheating? A friend saw her slipping into a motel with some guy, Marcus, as it turned out. I hired a private eye, and within a week, I had every detail I needed. What was the point of confronting her when she would just deny it or make both our lives miserable? I just waited. A tense silence floated between us. Finally, Lauren asked, How on earth could you be around her knowing all that? Doesn't it mess with your head? I laughed dryly. The mind is a funny thing. The first few weeks, I felt sick every time her phone buzzed or she ran out for an errand. But then, I just stopped caring. The love was gone. There's no pain when there's nothing left to lose. She searched my face, skepticism softening into something almost like respect. So, a year and a half without, intimacy. I met her gaze head on. Who said anything about that? Kathy was still offering, and I was still taking, just not on the days I knew Marcus had her first. After those nights, I couldn't pretend it was lovemaking. It was just transactional. The spark was gone, replaced by something colder. Lauren looked away, biting her lip. Do you have any idea why she started cheating? None, I admitted. But I doubt Marcus was her first. In the 10 years we were married, there were at least 4 phases where she turned cold for months at a time. Looking back, I figure each of those was another affair. I just didn't have evidence until now. If my buddy hadn't tipped me off this time, I'd have chalked it up to women's moods or whatever and kept my peace. She smiled, a sad sort of smile. You ever think about just leaving? I shook my head. Honestly, I waited for her. I figured as long as she was the one to leave, I wouldn't be painted the villain. Now I'm prepared to make things as hard as possible for her, legally speaking. She wanted the divorce, so she gets the bill. The accounts are emptied, the credit cards cancelled. All the things she needs to pay for, she'll have go running to Marcus for help. Let's see how much her new romance can handle real life. Lauren laughed, a real belly-deep laugh. You want some revenge, huh? Maybe a little, but mostly I just want out with my dignity. She leaned even closer, her expression softening. Listen, Devon, if you really want to jump back in, you've got to play your cards right. If you let her set the pace, she controls you. She could spin the whole thing, file for divorce, claim all sorts of abuse, make you out to be the monster. You file first, you lead, not her. Her confidence stirred something in me, a glimmer of the man I used to be. You're right, I said. Time to take charge. Lauren nudged my arm with her elbow, mischief sparkling in her eyes. That's more like it. And hey, if you need a little help getting your mind off things, you know where to find me. I grinned, maybe a little too eagerly. For the first time in what felt like years, a flicker of excitement replaced the cold emptiness inside. Tomorrow, everything would begin to change. The next morning, before the sun was even up, I made the call that would set everything in motion. Alex had been my friend since 3rd grade, a family lawyer with a knack for handling difficult situations, and now the person I needed most on my side. When his familiar voice answered, There was an edge of concern. "Morning, Devin. Everything all right?" "Not exactly, Alex," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "I need to ask for your professional help this time. Kathy's leaving. She's got someone else." There was a pause. Alex and his wife had always seemed to admire Kathy, but he didn't hesitate. "I'm sorry, man, but you know I'll help you through this. Come by the office at noon. I'll have the paperwork ready." I thanked him, feeling a small weight lift. Even as my life was splintering, at least I had one old friend in my corner. For once, I walked into work with a kind of grim purpose. I made a few calls, squared away some quick projects, and then met Alex for lunch. The meeting was efficient. Alex slid the paperwork across the table, his eyes steady. "You sure you want to do this?" I nodded. "It's time. I want a restraining order too. Kathy threatened me, said Marcus would straighten me out if I gave her trouble." Alex smirked. "You and I both know she's all bark, but I'll do it. A judge won't extend it forever without real cause, but it'll buy you space for now. You know there'll be a hearing in about 10 days once it's served." "That's all I need," I said. "Just give me a window to get her out of the house. We don't have kids. I want to keep the house, at least for now." Alex leaned back, thinking. "All right, I'll file everything this afternoon. Where do you want her served?" "At her office," I said, emotion finally seeping in. I can't trust what I'll find at home. Alex jotted a quick note. "You got it. Once she's served, change your locks." After lunch, a new determination filled me. I left the office, called a locksmith, and scheduled them for the day Kathy would get served. Yes, it would cost a little more, but considering what was at stake, I didn't care. When I finally walked through my front door that evening, Kathy was still there, perched at the kitchen table, surrounded by piles of papers. She looked up with a flush of anger and something else, maybe fear. "Why are you still here?" I asked, grabbing a cold beer from the fridge. "This is my house too," she shot back. "I'm going to stay until I figure something out." "If you don't like it, feel free to leave, Devin." "Not a chance," I said flatly. "Move your things into the guest room. You wanted a divorce. Now you have it. You're on your own. Want the couch? So do I. Want that coffee table? Sorry, a sudden wave of sentimentality. I simply can't part with it." I let bitterness drip from every word, watching her reaction. For the first time, Kathy looked shaken. She squared her shoulders. "You didn't seem to care before. When I told you I wanted a divorce, you just told me to pack and go." "That was before I had a chance to think about it," I replied quietly. "Let's be clear, there are no discussions left to have. You want this split? Fine, but I'm going to fight you for every last stupid little thing. You know, lawyers aren't cheap. They'll want their pound of flesh from you too." She hesitated, her bravado fading. I pressed on, taking a leap, my words sharper than ever. "I let you off those other times because I loved you. You always came back, and I somehow convinced myself you loved me too. But not this time, Kathy. Now I see through it. I know what you are." For a heartbeat, she couldn't meet my eyes. That was all the confirmation I needed. I tossed my empty beer in the recycling, voice cold. "You're right. It's your house too. But don't expect me to like it, or to talk to you. Stay out of my way." With that, I stalked upstairs, leaving her sitting alone in what used to be our kitchen, surrounded now by the echoes of a life falling apart. For the first time, I felt a grim satisfaction. Let her stew. She was about to discover just how difficult starting over with nothing could really be. That night, sleep barely touched me. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. Each tick of the clock brought a sharper focus to what I had to do. By dawn, I was out of bed before Kathy even left her room. I showered, dressed, and headed for the nearest bed and breakfast cafe. It was small and cozy, quiet enough for me to plot out my next moves. Over hot coffee and eggs, I started a list. People to call once Kathy was served. Friends, family, mutual acquaintances. I wanted my side of the story told first this time, before rumours took on their own life. By the time I arrived at work, the caffeine had burned away most of my anxiety, leaving behind only the cold, electric feeling of anticipation. Lauren was already at her desk, a smile creeping onto her lips as soon as she spotted me. "Hope you're ready for the weekend, Devin," she chimed, flashing that flirtatious glint that was quickly becoming familiar. In spite of everything, I found myself smiling back, a little more genuinely, each day. At noon, I met Alex at a diner across from the courthouse. The air thrummed with a sense of finality as he slid a thick folder toward me. "Sign here and here," he said, tapping the pages. "I'll file the petition right after lunch." "You still want her served at work?" "Absolutely," I replied. "As soon as you can. Call me the minute it happens. I want her out for good." He nodded, understanding exactly what I meant. "I'll get your locks changed too." Better safe than sorry. Alex headed off to file the divorce papers. I returned to work, arranged for a day off, and before I even left the office, I had a locksmith scheduled to come the following morning, ready to change all the locks the moment Kathy was served. Yes, it was expensive, but peace of mind was worth the cost. That evening, when I got home, Kathy's car was still in the driveway, but the house was eerily silent. I moved quietly, not wanting a confrontation, and she stayed holed up in her room. I left early the next morning, just as I had the day before, returning to the cozy cafe to linger over breakfast, biding my time. The waitress, Nadia, a friendly face after just 2 visits, smiled as she took my order. "You here alone again, Devin?" "I used to always see you two together." I managed a tight smile. "Not anymore. We're splitting up." Her eyes softened. "I'm sorry to hear that." As she slid the bill toward me, she whispered, "My number's on the back, if you want to talk." I blinked in surprise. 2 women, 2 days, and suddenly the world felt full of more possibilities than it ever had with Kathy. After draining my last cup of coffee, I walked out into the morning sun, feeling the first real pangs of freedom. Once I knew what time Kathy left for work, I drove home and methodically began packing her things. Clothes, boxes of keepsakes, all of it. I carried everything to the garage, stacking her world into a neat, brutal pile, then printed a large cardboard sign for her. "Kathy, all your things are here in the garage." At 10:15, Alex's number flashed across my screen. She served. My chest felt lighter than it had in months. I called the locksmith. Within 20 minutes, he arrived and worked fast, changing every lock while I kept one wary eye on the driveway. Less than an hour after Kathy's normal lunch break, her car screeched into the driveway. There was no way she could miss the open garage door and that huge screaming sign. I watched from behind a curtain as she paused, reading the sign, jaw set in anger. She walked to the front door and tried her key. It didn't work. She tried the back, then the side entrance, but every lock was new. She pounded on the doorbell, but I refused to answer. Eventually, she left in a huff, tossing 2 large bags into her back seat. Not 5 minutes after her car disappeared down the street, my cell phone rang. It was Kathy. Her voice was practically a snarl, but beneath the anger, I could hear the tremor of someone who'd just realized the world was colder than she'd imagined. "You're such a jerk, Devin. Did you really have to embarrass me at my office?" "Better than letting you humiliate me in front of mine," I said coolly. "What's wrong, Kathy?" "The restraining order got you spooked." She was livid. "What is this legal nonsense about Marcus coming to straighten you out? Seriously?" I tried not to laugh. "Well, I just thought if you got Tyrone to rough me up for being difficult, I'd need some protection. You know how it is. I need to get in the house and grab the rest of my things. Everything of yours is in the garage. The door code hasn't changed. If you need something else, email me a list and I'll move it out there for you." She huffed. "You're making this way harder than it needs to be." "Sorry, Kathy. After years of what you put me through, a little inconvenience is the least you deserve. Be glad it's not worse." I hung up, shaking with adrenaline and something that bordered on grim joy. Then I started dialing through my call list, friends, family, even Kathy's parents. Most were shocked. A couple quietly admitted they had always suspected. Her parents, they took it hard, immediately insisting there must be some mistake. I stood my ground and refused to let her rewrite history, determined that this time, the truth would win out. Finally alone in my house, I prowled from room to room, collecting the last stray items of hers, packing away all the leftover debris of a life I no longer recognized as my own. For lunch, I made myself a quiet sandwich, savouring the solitude broken only by the anticipation of the days to come. After finishing my lunch, I paced through the empty house, every footstep echoing through the open living spaces that just days before had felt cramped with tension. Before long, the security company van pulled into my driveway, right on schedule. I opened the door without hesitation, greeted the two uniformed techs, and directed them to install cameras and motion sensors at every vulnerable spot: doors, windows, even the garage entry. I watched them work, thinking over every moment of Kathy's angry exit, every slammed door and contemptuous glance from the last 12 months. I was taking no chances. Not after seeing how volatile she could be, especially now that she'd finally lost control. By evening, the house felt secure. Maybe for the first time ever, it truly felt like mine. I met Lauren at a downtown bar for dinner and drinks as promised. She was in high spirits, all wit and confidence, her laughter lighting up the air between us. "Tomorrow night, you're mine for dinner and dancing," she teased, clearly delighted by the change in our dynamic. Truth be told, I was looking forward to that night more than I wanted to admit to myself. Returning home, I immediately noticed the side garage door was ajar. My pulse quickened. I stepped inside and was hit by chaos. Shattered plates and glasses on the kitchen floor, lamps broken in the living room. Most disturbing of all was the pile of my clothes, strewn across the bedroom floor. That's when I spotted her, caught in the act by the security footage. Kathy, wild-eyed, tossing my belongings, and in a final act of spite, urinating on them. For a moment, I just stared in disbelief. Then it hit me. I had everything on camera. Pure evidence, clear as could be. I wasted no time calling Alex. He urged me to contact the police immediately. Within the hour, they arrived, took photographs, and filed a report on the destruction and violation of the restraining order. The next morning, Kathy was arrested at her job, booked, fingerprinted, and marched before a judge to answer for trespassing, property damage, and willfully violating the court-issued order. Despite all the turmoil, my weekend with Lauren was unforgettable. Dinner became dancing, and dancing turned into laughter that carried late into the night. The next day, we spent a lazy afternoon picnicking at the park, talking about anything but failed marriages and legal messes. For those 2 days, it almost felt like I'd been given a second chance at happiness. On Monday, I dressed in my sharpest suit and headed to court for the restraining order hearing. Once the judge saw the footage from my security system, he made the temporary restraining order permanent, granting me sole rights to the home while the divorce continued. He also ordered Kathy to cover the cleaning bills and replace all destroyed property, including a hefty dry cleaning order for my clothes and the cost of repairing what she'd ruined in the bedroom. If she didn't comply, she'd face real jail time for contempt of court. Feeling vindicated, I decided to throw a little extra salt in the wound. I hired the most expensive cleaning service in the city. Kathy found a way to pay, but the looks on everyone's faces at the courthouse told me word was getting out about her unravelling. The next couple of weeks went by quietly. Lauren and I began seeing each other more, though both of us set clear boundaries while the divorce lingered. There was only so much either of us felt comfortable exploring, with my name still legally tied to Kathy's. Still, stolen kisses and hopeful conversations were more than I'd allowed myself for far too long. Eventually, the divorce proceedings lurched forward. It all felt painstakingly slow, but simple, just as the law stated in a no-fault state. Everything was split 50-50. Alex, ever the careful tactician, found ways to ensure I kept control of the house. I refinanced, bought out Kathy's share, and moved forward. There were a couple small victories too. The money I'd tucked away in an account Kathy didn't know existed, and the 2 certificates of deposit I'd bought with old bonus checks. Those at least were mine and mine alone. One final blow landed in my favour: alimony. Kathy demanded $500 a week. She ended up with barely $100, and only for 2 years, or until she remarried. Alex credited it to the luck of the draw with judges, 2 cousins who both went through the pain of betrayal themselves. For once, it felt like the scales of justice really did tip toward the faithful. Kathy and Marcus fizzled soon after everything was signed. Within 7 months, Kathy was living back with her parents. Her grand fantasies turned to dust. If I ever doubted my decision, seeing her regress to the life she left behind was reassurance enough that I'd chosen the right path. Lauren and I, we kept moving forward one day and one honest conversation at a time.